In his recent State of the Union speech, President Trump said he stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech. But his opponents say he's done the exact opposite. So, who's right? That is for you to decide. The First Amendment says the government can't pass laws that take away our freedom to speak. Our founders made this rule because back in England, it was a crime for them to criticize the king, and the founders didn't like the idea of facing penalty of death for speaking their mind. In the US, courts see free speech as a basic right. They say speech should be wide open, energetic, and unrestricted. There are three main types of speech. Pure speech, so just words like what I'm saying now. Speech plus, so words and actions like holding signs and chanting. And then symbolic speech, actions that express a message like burning a flag or doing a silent protest. All of these can be protected by law. But where you speak matters too. In private places, like your home, the government has almost no control. In public places like parks or streets, or designated public places like malls, the government can make rules about when, where, and how you speak, but not about what you speak about. This is because we don't want the government to decide what thoughts, ideas, or debates can be expressed. In other words, the government shouldn't be able to regulate the content of what's said. But we recognized that it is in the public interest sometimes to limit where speech can occur. So for instance, a law that says you can't express support in a public park for any country besides the USA during the World Cup is a limit on speech based on content, and that would be unlawful. But a law that says you can't exercise any form of expression in a public park after 10 p.m. is likely to be fine because it doesn't restrict any one kind of viewpoint, and it is meant to ensure the people around the park aren't bothered when trying to go to sleep. Now, to decide if the government is properly limiting speech, courts perform the following analysis. Does the law restrict the ability to speak in public or private places? If yes, the question is whether the law is content-based. If it is, then does the law serve a compelling government interest? And is it necessary and narrowly tailored to achieve the interest? If the law is not content-based, the courts will ask, can the government support the law without referencing any content of speech? Is the law narrowly tailored to serve a significant governmental interest? And does the law allow for enough other ways for people to communicate the information they want? Courts have approved laws that are not content-based, such as those that restrict any speech within 100 feet of a medical facility or that prevent protesters from blocking sidewalks and streets. Such laws are not based on content and only limit the availability to speak in a narrow manner. While courts are much more concerned with laws that seek to limit certain types of speech, courts have determined certain content is able to be regulated, such as obscene speech, like giving porn to kids, speech that incites violence, like encouraging people to be immediately violent, and defamation, or spreading lies that hurt someone's reputation. Because everyone is wondering, the courts found porn is not considered obscene just because it involves sex. If speech just provokes normal, healthy sexual desires, it is lawful. Also, the courts have allowed a carve-out of obscene language as long as it's not child porn within one's home because it is so private and because it says a fundamental right is to be free, except in very limited circumstances, from unwanted government intrusion into one's privacy. As for speech that incites violence, the general rule is that a call for specific illegal action is not protected speech. However, a call for violent opposition to something like civil rights law is protected speech. Defamation can be spoken, which is called slander, or written, which is called libel. To defame someone, you have to say something false and damaging about them to another person. It has to be more than just an opinion. It's harder to prove defamation if you're a public figure, like a politician or a celebrity. To win, the celebrity or politician has to show that you knew what you said was false or that you were reckless about what information you were discussing. That's because the courts want to protect public debate. And they figure public figures have the ability to fight back because they can get a lot of attention to refute any claim. Also, the harder to prove defamation, the less likely a powerful person will be to just sue anyone that says something bad about them because they will know that likely they can't prove defamation and will just lose out on money. So, if you're a private person, the standard to prove defamation is less. The statement just has to be false when a reasonable person would have known it was false. Now, let's talk about Trump's record. Trump's administration has threatened not to hire Georgetown law students if Georgetown University continues to teach DEI. It has said it will only award grants to artists and theaters if they agree not to promote gender ideology. It has taken away security clearance from, canceled all government contracts with, and prevented the hiring of at least 2 law firms that assisted Jack Smith and Hillary Clinton for what it claims are dishonest and dangerous activity that undermines democratic elections and the integrity of our courts. It has also threatened to cut funding from campuses that allow illegal protests, and for those that participate in the protests, it has threatened imprisonment or deportation if they are immigrants, and arrest or expulsion if they are Americans. Now, Trump's administration claims that these actions are strictly enforcing the law. They claim all DEI practices are discriminatory, and that includes lessons about gender ideology. That the firms that are banned acted unlawfully, and that he's merely enforcing the laws that prevent speakers from blocking access to classrooms, loitering, trespassing, or aiding those who do these things. President Trump would also suggest that his laws protect the rights of those who speak out against DEI and the students who cannot speak because they are shouted down by the protesters on campus. In short, these laws are necessary and narrowly tailored to uphold the compelling interest to protect the speech of everyone and prevent illegal activity. Opponents say that all these actions are blatantly unconstitutional as attempts to limit the fundamental right to freedom of speech. They say such actions are meant to deter speech and make people with certain viewpoints afraid to speak out instead of encouraging healthy debate between different viewpoints. That all this is meant to do is strike fear in those who oppose President Trump or any of his policies. They say his executive orders and statements are unclear, they're coercive, and the funds he is saying will be withheld are unrelated to the topics he's trying to suppress. Additionally, they say the executive orders as expressed are not narrowly tailored at all. So, is Trump protecting free speech? You decide. Let me know in the comments, and please like and subscribe.